Look very closely at this picture. A colorful crayon drawing on a crumpled piece of paper. Do you see anything wrong? It was a Mother's Day gift. The artist was Yuta, 6 years old. When asked, the boy proudly explained, "In the picture, there's me, there's aha, and there's mama. Wait, haha and mama. Japanese people do not call their mother by two different words in the same sentence. Haha is the formal term, almost used to refer to one's mother to an outsider. Mama is the intimate, childish name. To use them both at once was a contradiction, an anomaly. Naoko's husband Takeshi died 3 years ago. Yuta was now almost 6 years old. The image of his father in the boy's mind was hazy, like morning mist. It was not clear. It was not specific. Only one memory fragment remained, a fragment as sharp as a razor. It was shortly before Takeshi died. He had taken Yuta to visit the family grave. Standing before the cold gray stone, Takeshi had said something very gentle to him. Yuta could not remember what it was. He tried, but he could not. In that memory, only one thing remained, the deafening, ceaseless sound of the summer cicadas, a piercing symphony of life and death. Just a moment ago, Yuta had been scolded. He had scribbled on the new paper wall of their tiny apartment. Naoko looked at the paper Yuta had used. It was the back of an old accounting sheet. She glanced at the red rent due notice taped to the refrigerator. The pressure made her regret for yelling at her son feel even heavier. She no longer had the strength to be angry. But Naoko was not just afraid of financial pressure. There was something else. Something happening right now. Something that made her throat tighten. Recently, Naoko felt she was being watched. The first time the feeling came was a few nights ago. Naoko was picking Yuta up from daycare. As they walked through the shortcut alley, she suddenly felt someone staring at her back, a piercing gaze. Hungry. She spun around. The alley was empty. Only a weak orange streetlight cast shadows on the trash. At first, she thought it was a hallucination. It was the stress. But in the following days, the feeling did not disappear. It grew stronger. It clung to her like a foul smell. Tonight, on the way home, that suspicion finally became an undeniable fact. A motorcycle. It kept a fixed distance, about 30 meters, following the two of them. The engine rumbled at a low frequency, a sound that vibrated in Naoko's chest. She began to tense up. Run. Stand still. Or turn and face them. All three options felt dangerous. She could only grip Yuta's small hand tightly, squeezing so hard the boy almost cried out, and hurry her pace toward home. If only Takeshi were still here, Naoko whispered to her husband's photograph on the small altar. Thin incense smoke curled upwards, but it brought no peace. The next day, as usual, Naoko finished work and rushed to the kindergarten to pick up Yuta. But today, Yuta's teacher, Haruoka Miharu, asked her to stay. The teacher looked worried. She lowered her voice, as if sharing a shameful secret. Hey, Mrs. Kano, has Yuta been acting strangely at home recently? Naoko blinked. Strangely? What do you mean? For example, has he been obsessed with horror TV shows or anything like that? Please wait a moment. Miharu explained that Mother's Day was coming. The school had the children draw a picture of their mother as a gift. Then, the teacher took out Yuta's drawing. Naoko looked at the picture, and she froze. She recognized it immediately. On the right side of the drawing were two figures, one large and one small. That was surely Yuta and Naoko. In the center was the apartment building where they lived. Uta had drawn it with perfect accuracy, the number of floors, the number of windows on each floor, the position of the main entrance. The strange part was at the very top of the building, the center room on the top floor. It was scribbled out angrily, a chaotic mess of black and red crayon strokes overlapping each other, as if Yuta had tried to erase it from the paper. That was their apartment, room 602. Miharu continued, her voice filled with concern. Yuta loves to draw. Normally he would proudly show it to me, but today, for some reason, no matter how I asked him, Yuta only answered, "I don't want to talk about it." The teacher's voice dropped. So, I have to wonder, is there something at home that is frightening you? Hearing that, a pang of guilt rose in Naoko. Maybe it was her fault. Maybe it was because she had scolded Yuta too harshly yesterday for drawing on the wall. Just then, Naoko noticed a new detail. Since when did Yuta know how to write kanji? In the bottom right corner of the picture, next to the drawing of mother and son, were 4 kanji characters written in black crayon. Kano Yuta. His name, Miharu, quickly explained. "Oh, last week I taught the children to write their names in kanji to prepare for their upcoming birthdays. Yuta learns very fast." The teacher smiled, a professional, proud smile. "The character for you in his name has many strokes. It's still a bit difficult for him, but he can already write the other 3 characters from memory." Naoko nodded, trying to hide the anxiety rising in her. She thanked the teacher and took Yuta's hand to leave. When mother and son left the kindergarten, the sky was already pitch black. It was only a few more minutes' walk to their apartment building. And then she heard it, a familiar sound. The motorcycle engine. It was close, very close. Naoko remembered the days of being followed. Her body instantly tensed. It was here. This was not an illusion. What was happening? Who was it? Why were they doing this? The fear and uncertainty almost drove Naoko mad. She said nothing. She just gripped Yuta's hand and started to run. She heard Yuta panting beside her, trying to keep up with his mother's steps. The engine roared behind them. It was accelerating. They burst into the apartment lobby. The world suddenly became bright. The sickly, cold white light enveloped them. It felt like a thin shield, temporarily separating them from the thick darkness and suffocating anxiety outside the glass door. The elevator was on the 6th floor. Naoko looked at the red number. It would take about 20 seconds to come down. 20 seconds. Naoko mumbled, counting, but her eyes could not leave the glass lobby door. She was terrified. She held her breath. Just then, screech. A piercing sound came from outside. The motorcycle engine abruptly stopped. The sudden silence was even more terrifying than the noise. He had stopped, right outside. Could he dare to come in here? A thought flashed. Maybe we shouldn't wait for the elevator. Let's run up the stairs. Naoko had just finished speaking when Yuta suddenly stiffened. He stared into the darkness of the stairwell next to the elevator. He began to tremble. "No," Yuta whispered. "Hurry, Yuta." "The stairs," Naoko urged, trying to pull his hand. "No." Yuta suddenly screamed, his shriek echoing through the lobby. "I don't want to go in the stairs. I don't want to. It's too dark in there. I'm scared." Naoko's heart skipped a beat. Too loud. Yuta's scream was too loud. Outside, footsteps sounded. Heavy. Deliberate. He was walking toward the door. Ding. The elevator had arrived. Naoko had no more time to calm down. She dragged the sobbing Yuta into the elevator. Her fingernail jammed against the button for the 6th floor, the cold metal. She pressed so hard her nail almost broke. The elevator doors began to close slowly. The gap narrowed. The white light of the lobby was swallowed up. In the instant, the doors were about to close completely. Naoko heard it clearly. The sound of the main glass door being pushed open, and the sound of his footsteps running into the lobby. Immediately after, a sound erupted. A hard punch. A loud bang. Someone had punched the metal elevator door from the outside. An angry punch. The sound was like a needle, stabbing deep into Naoko's heart. She jumped. But Yuta, who had been crying, suddenly fell silent. He did not cry anymore. He just stood there, eyes wide, completely quiet, as if he was listening. Naoko was too panicked to notice this strange change. The elevator shuddered and began to rise. The 6th floor. Only a few steps from their door. Naoko pulled Yuta out of the elevator. Her tension finally eased, just a little. But suddenly, she felt an unnatural breath behind her. No, not a breath. It was a sound. A very small sound. It was the panting of a man. Someone trying to suppress their ragged breathing after heavy exertion. The sound was coming from right next to the elevator, from the stairwell. Could he have run up the stairs? The thought made Naoko shudder. He had climbed 6 flights of stairs. That fast. She trembled. Her hand could not fit the key into the lock. The metallic clicking echoed in the quiet hallway. The panting in the stairwell also stopped. He was listening. Naoko tried to fit the key. Yuta, who had been silent since the elevator, suddenly burst. He tore free from her hand, rushed to their apartment door, door 602. He pounded his tiny fists against the metal door. "Open it," he screamed. "Open it. Hurry up. Get inside. I'm scared. I'm scared." The pounding echoed through the hallway. Naoko was horrified. She lunged to cover Yuta's mouth, and in the dead space of the stairwell, she heard it. The panting stopped. In its place was a slow, long inhale, a sound of satisfaction. He knew exactly which door. She quickly jammed the key in, twisting it hard. Clack! The moment the security door slammed shut and the lock was thrown, Naoko felt as if all her strength had been drained. She collapsed to the floor, leaning against the cold door, holding Yuta tightly as he trembled. The old fear had not yet faded before a new one rushed in. He was clearly in the stairwell, right outside. Why did he not rush out? What did he want? Naoko crawled to the door. She looked through the peephole. The hallway was dark. The automatic light was off. No footsteps. No shadow. Even that suppressed panting was gone. It was as if it had all been her imagination, but the trembling in her fingertips could not lie. He had been there. And now he knew they were in room 602. Naoko stared at the security door. Suddenly, she did not dare go near it. The thick, cold metal plate offered her no sense of safety. It felt like a tomb door. That night, Naoko did not sleep. She sat huddled on the sofa in the living room, facing the front door. She did not dare turn on the lights. In her mind, one image played over and over. The door being kicked open, a man with a knife rushing in. Should she call the police? The thought flashed, but she extinguished it immediately. Naoko did not want to involve the police. She had her reasons. Reasons connected to that. Just then, Yuta's school bag on the dining table caught her eye. Inside was the picture Meheru had given her. Naoko took the drawing out. She stared at the black and red chaotic scribble over room 602. Is there something at home that is frightening Yuta? The teacher's words echoed in her head. Why was Yuta so afraid of the stairwell? His scream of "I'm scared." It was not just fear of the dark. And why had he fallen silent when the stranger punched the elevator door? A chill ran down Naoko's spine. She needed to find Yuta's other drawings. She went to the closet in the bedroom, where she kept a few old things. She pulled down an oak box where she kept Takeshi's old documents and now used for Yuta's art supplies. She opened the lid. Right on top was an old velvet photo album. She knew what it was. She had not opened it in 3 years. She turned the first page. A picture of Takeshi, younger, smiling brightly. And next to him was a beautiful, long-haired woman she did not recognize. Takeshi's first wife. Naoko turned the pages quickly. She did not want to look. She knew the woman had died in an accident long before Naoko met him. The final page was a photo of that woman's single grave. Naoko shuddered, closing the album. Beneath it was Yuta's sketchbook. She flipped through the pages. Drawings of superheroes, animals, and Naoko until the last page. It was not a drawing. The page was filled with writing. Yuta had been practicing, but not his name. He had written a single kanji character over and over, hundreds of times. The strokes were clumsy, pressed so hard they nearly tore the paper. The character from Mother. A wave of nausea rose in Naoka's throat. The drawing, me, haha, and Mama. Yuta was not afraid of the stalker outside. He was afraid of Haha, the mother in the cemetery, and the scribbled out picture of room 602. It was not because Yuta was afraid of a stranger breaking in. It was because Haha was already inside. That was why he was afraid of the dark stairwell. That was why he screamed. And the punch on the elevator door. Yuta had fallen silent. He was listening. Yuta's pounding on the door. Get inside. I'm scared, Naoko realized the horrifying truth. He was not trying to protect them from the man outside. He was trying to call the man outside to be saved. Naoko felt the blood freeze in her veins. She did not move. She sat on the sofa. She waited until dawn arrived, a pale, weak streak of light filtering through the crack in the door. Naoko dragged her exhausted body to the bedroom. She needed to sleep just a little. She had to wake Yuta for school. Naoko opened Yuta's bedroom door. And then a scream tore through the quiet morning air of the apartment complex. A shattered scream. An inhuman sound. The room was empty. The bed was neatly made, as if no one had ever slept there. Yuta was gone. On the floor, in the middle of the room, was a single drawing. Naoko picked it up, trembling. It was a new picture. It showed 3 people, Yuta, Naoko, and a long-haired woman with a darkened face standing between them. All 3 were holding hands. In the bottom corner, Yuta had written his name, Kano Yuta. But this time, the character for you in his name was written perfectly, clearly, and beautifully.